Holla and hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing? I'm excited. Driving. I love the subject. It's a good subject. You know, you guys love cars. Americans love to drive everywhere. So it's a perfect match. I love learning about it and the differences in Germany versus USA, which is what this video is about. And I think it'll have some unique perspectives that I hadn't heard before because, you know, it's coming from an American, I believe. Type Ashton. Go check out her channel, link down below. I'm excited. Epic intro, epic intro.
Okay, so first things first. I think that one of the most noticeable differences for both Jonathan and I when we first moved to Germany in
Okay, so they're both from America.
regards to the drivers was just how disciplined they are, especially when it comes to the rule that you pass on the left and you drive on the right.
Yeah, so in Germany and really most of Europe, driving in the left on the highway or the Autobahn is used exclusively for passing. Although this is a rule for really every single country, Germany follows it all of the time. You'll notice.
I was wondering if this car was going to get over. I was like, oh my God. You've been in that passing lane for upwards of 15 seconds, guy. Get over. Here in America, he definitely would have just kept going because it looked like his speed was a little bit faster than this car. So he just would have stuck in this lane probably forever. Or at least until he was ahead of like every single car that wasn't going his speed.
For really every single country.
It's actually kind of interesting. So is he going to get over and then pass back?
Germany follows it all of the time. You'll notice when you're driving down the Autobahn, you pass somebody, everybody moves over to the right as soon as possible to give right of way to the faster drivers from behind. So when you're driving down the Autobahn, it is really a much less stressful experience knowing what everybody...
I bet it would look really cool on a drone, seeing like a busy time on the Autobahn where it's just like a beautiful sequence of cars. I don't know. In my head, I think that could be cool.
Everybody's going to be doing in front of you. You can anticipate.
But I've heard this, to be honest, so I'm moving on.
Sense. In Germany, the stoplights are on your end of the intersection, not on the other side of the street. So
I don't know about that. Just being honest, I'm not sure about that. How do you see it? I already have trouble sometimes seeing stoplights when I'm all the way at the front. How do you see it if it's right above your car? Okay, I guess you have this one over here.
honestly, for me,
You always have one over here, though?
a lot of times it's actually hard to see what color the light is. Often you have to lean forward and look and kind of hold this position until you get the yellow and then the green light.
Yeah, and you know, the cars
The baby doesn't like it either.
tend to be a little bit smaller in Europe anyway, which I feel like almost exaggerates this issue. When you're in a tiny car and you're right at the line of the intersection, you're really usually reaching your neck up to make sure that you can see it properly.
So in the United States,
You need one of those electric cars that has a panoramic roof of all glass.
stoplights are wonderful. They are on the other side of the intersection.
Yes, 1 point for USA. USA, USA.
Meaning I can just sit here comfortably, relaxed in my seat, and I can
I take the wins when I can get them, guys.
perfectly see whether they're red, yellow, or green.
Yeah, so I think if there's actually a ranking going on what Germany wins and what the United States wins at, I think largely for driving, it's much better in Germany. But this is the one
I already knew that.
thing about driving in the United States that, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
It's so much better. I wouldn't say that is
That is an interesting, just really small. I wonder why. What's the rationale for German, engineers to say, oh, it needs to be on this side? Because this obviously is more visible. And the other thing about it that I like is if you're at the intersection in a crossing lane, you, like this SUV over here on the right, can see this light. And if you're in a rush, you're like, you're tapping your foot. You can see it's green, and then you see it turn yellow, and you're like, okay, I'm up next. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. You start throttling the engine. Boom! take off the second it's green. So I like it for that reason too.
Or green.
Yeah, so I think if there's actually a ranking going on what Germany wins and what the United States wins at, I think large.
I already heard her say that.
Driving, it is also turning. I wouldn't say that is the only thing that America does better with driving. It is also turning right on red.
Oh yes, that's 2 for America. Right on red. You guys have some kind of weird priority street, but there's some kind of rule about like who gets priority if, I don't know, it's a person to the right.
Okay, yeah, fair. That's a fair point.
For example, right now the light is red. I just looked to my left to see if anybody's coming. There are quite a few cars coming, but when nobody's coming, I'm free to just continue.
Oh, they're in America right now.
Continue on my journey, turn right, and go. Look at that, the light is red. I'm free.
Well, he actually has a green arrow, so he could have just gone anyway. But that's besides the point, guys, even when there's not a green arrow. This is actually kind of a strange stoplight. Even, you know, this is in America, and I'm like, huh? Why is it red on top and then green arrow? It's not very typical.
Free and clear to go. Nobody's coming. I'm not crossing traffic. I'm not getting...
In fact, I'm now questioning what I just said. I don't know. I would assume that means you can just go if there's a green arrow. But hopefully there's not traffic coming. Yeah, see, I think these people have a left green light, left turn green light. So you are free to go. Unless someone does a U-turn, then it gets hairy.
Red, I'm free and clear to go. Nobody's coming. I'm not crossing traffic. I'm not getting anybody's way. Why is this not something that other countries pick up? It seems perfectly safe to me. Americans beware. You cannot turn right.
Yeah, I'd say it's relatively safe. There's definitely some accidents caused by it, I'm sure. Or at least you'll have people that kind of cut you off. But that's how it is anyway, you know, with stop signs and stuff and people pulling out of streets. So, meh.
Right on red, unless otherwise indicated. So if you come up to a red light, nobody's coming, you just have to sit and wait.
Hi, I'm renovation expert Scott McGilvery, and I know...
So next up on our list are the rules of the road. And in Germany, these rules are followed to the T.
Yeah, so not following...
I feel like that's standard practice in all of Germany. Follow the rules. Or you'll have people literally yelling out their window at you. That's how I feel.
Rules of the road will either get you a steep fine from the Polizei or a stern warning from the other drivers. Whether it's honking or yelling at you or my personal favorite. Yeah, they'll be sure to let you know when you mess up.
So let's be honest, turn signals in the United States are optional and speed limits are just suggestions. And yeah, the left lane is...
Oh, you know what? That's an interesting thing. Do you guys follow the speed limit? I mean, I know, you know, the rules are pretty abided by closely in Germany, like they're saying. But the speed limit, who abides by that?
Often just a cruising lane. It's not a passing lane like it was originally intended.
Yeah, I'd like to think that there are some really great drivers in the United States, but to be honest, sometimes the rules are more or less just guidelines.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
So in Germany, it is very important to be observant.
I've seen other countries where that's definitely more true than here in America. Like, it's not complete chaos here in America. Whereas if you look at some other countries, I don't know. I don't want to say any because, you know, it might be offensive or people might think I'm wrong or something. But I've seen videos of other countries where it's basically chaos. People are doing like anything.
And keep an eye out for speed cameras because they are often placed all throughout the city. In addition...
That's a speed... That pole was a speed camera?
Into like the fixed speed cameras, it is also possible that the police will have vans that they set on the side of the street, and those vans will have cameras inside of them, and they will also set out cameras randomly out on highways or roads, also connected to a van.
Do police not just use a speed gun?
And
Is it all cameras?
if you're speeding, they'll get a picture of you. That picture will come to you in the mail.
However, in the United
So they don't pull you over for speeding at all? You'll never be pulled over for speeding. You'll just get it in the mail.
States,
That actually seems pretty efficient, but also, you know, well, it's a balancing act. You know, it's kind of dangerous. Like, it causes some danger to pull someone over just because it's out of the ordinary and you're having to stop on the side of the road. It's a little bit dangerous. But on the flip side, letting someone speed without pulling them over, you know, they're just going to keep speeding probably. And that's a little bit dangerous. So that's interesting. I'm sure if you get above a certain speed, they're going to pull you over.
you kind of have to be like on spy mode all the time, looking out for cop cars, seeing if they're doing any radar shooting, because oftentimes, especially on the highway, they will pull off into a small little nook and sit there with their gun, or they're like wait on the other side of a hill.
Oh my God. Look at this turn. It would actually be pretty cool, but it's banking the wrong way. You know what I mean? It's banking against the turn. It's like the opposite of NASCAR. What the heck?
Hill waiting for you to come back down the other side.
Or behind a building. There's always somebody there. At
Yes.
least in your mind, you think there's somebody there.
Yeah, totally different, but
You can get a radar detector. Put that on your dashboard. Cops love when they see that.
yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, and then they'll basically chase you down, lights and sirens, give you a ticket.
I guess I was going about 65 tops.
7 miles an hour. And normally when I stop people, they pull onto the shoulder.
Okay, so don't get me wrong. You can definitely find SUVs and large vehicles in Germany. But in comparison to the United States, I would say that here they are far fewer and much harder to find.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can just look at the top selling vehicles by country. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. I'm actually curious. That's manufacturer. Here we go. American Samoa. No. Ford F-150 in the United States. And the VW Golf. Could it literally be more opposite?
Yeah, on average, the vehicles here are far smaller than the United States, and it's really offset by a lot of smart
Oh, now they're driving in Germany.
cars and compact sedans, things like that. And the car we're in right now, which is a wagon, is actually probably the most popular.
So we get it.
The
Everything
wagon.
is bigger in the United States. The houses, the people to some extent, and the cars are definitely no exception.
Yeah, in the United States, they're often massive trucks, massive SUVs, and it's not just having a truck that's enough. Many people will modify the trucks, lift them, put bigger tires.
I mean, if you looked at all those cars, though, as just a small sample, a lot of them are just sedans, for what it's worth. I mean, I drive a Corolla.
Not just having a truck that's enough. Many people will modify the trucks, lift them, put bigger tires on them, all over the place. You'll see this everywhere.
Yeah, I grew
Especially out in the country.
up in the country, and very much having a giant pickup truck with big mud tires was definitely a status symbol.
What is that? That? It's my ladder. You bought something you can't get into or out of without a ladder.
It's very high up.
When your standard exceeds the ordinary, exceptional...
Hammond, that's the worst thing I've ever seen.
It's brilliant. Look at it.
So, yeah, and I mean, even now we're here in Kansas City. It's definitely not the country,
I know that all too well.
but it's still the Midwest, and you're gonna see big pickup trucks everywhere you go.
All over the place. And full-size SUVs.
I mean, you're not going to see that so much like in the middle of New York City on Times Square, but
Okay, so I know it's a bit ironic,
elsewhere you will.
with this next point because we're driving in a car, but actually driving in general, especially in large cities, is a lot less frequent as it is in the United States, because in Europe, cities...
I'm going to skip this one because I am very familiar with that subject.
So there's one thing you need.
Americans don't walk anywhere, and it's because of probably two reasons. One, culturally, we just don't walk nearly as much as we should, and second, everything's way too far apart. It's really not practical.
Need to be
unless you live like in the middle of Times Square.
Aware of in Germany, and that's the roads are very, very tight. Oh my goodness. It's very common that roads will be one way. They barely fit the width of a car.
That is so crazy to me. This road wasn't even big enough for both cars.
It's very common that roads will be one way.
And it's not a one-way, right? Yeah, no, this is not a one-way. So what? It's just crazy. You can't drive. I mean, imagine if these were both F-150s. It would make it so much worse.
Barely fit the width of a car, and also people drive mirror to mirror at 30 kilometers an hour through villages.
Really? Wow. You guys are very confident in your ability, huh?
Frequently.
I would not trust my fellow Americans driving that close to my car.
It can often be a very stressful experience when you're not used to it.
Yeah, I actually would think that by American standards, oftentimes roads that are two ways for two vehicles, these roads would be considered a one-way street in the United States. Yeah, so the streets in the United States, they're massive.
Yeah, and as you've seen, the vehicles in the United States are often quite large, so there is...
Especially, and this is especially true when you're in small towns or like, you know, places where land is cheap. Oh my God, it's crazy how big the roads are, and then parking lots, they just don't care, you know what I mean? They're not, the land isn't worth anything, so they just pave the whole thing to make a gigantic parking lot. It's crazy.
Plenty of space to navigate them around. Okay, so I'm a car guy. One of my favorite things about being here
but all that contributes to it not being very walkable, you know?
Driving is the lack of speed limits on the Autobahn. I know not all of the Autobahn is unlimited. A good percentage of it does have an actual speed limit, but for gearheads or people like me who love cars...
To me, that means it's not the Autobahn. If it's got a speed limit, it ain't the Autobahn.
...and driving, it is quite the experience.
Yeah, and as a passenger, I can only say it is quite something to get used to when he floors it.
Jeez. Oh, I don't think that's ever going to get old.
Is this an electric car? That sounded for sure like an electric car.
Yeah, but that brings up another interesting point about speed limits. Germany and all European countries have default speed limits. There are not always speed limits posted where you are.
Right.
When you approach.
Yes, I'm well aware of
that.
So,
as a cyclist, one of the things I love most about being here is how safe I feel on a bicycle. There are often bike lanes scattered all through cities. There's separated bike lanes really all over the place. I know it's not really on the same level as the Netherlands, but for our American viewers, Germany is by far better in regards to bicycle safety and infrastructure.
And actually, like we said in our Cycling in Germany video, one of the things...
The infrastructure is very impressive. I feel like that alone would probably help. I mean, it's also kind of like, you know, everything being really far apart. Yeah, biking is more practical than walking, but it's still not super practical, you know? Like, I can't really imagine. Oh my God. I live, you know, 15 miles away from... Well, let me think. I live like 8 miles away from the closest grocery store. So yeah, I'm not walking there. I could bike there. I definitely could. How long would that take? It would probably take me half an hour. Maybe more. Probably more. 40 minutes. And 40 minutes back.
Things that I actually find that makes me feel...
But it's not even is not even practical at all. The road has literally no shoulder the whole way there. So, no.
So much safer on the road is that I think that German drivers legitimately look for bicycles, at least a lot more frequently, especially if they're turning left or right on a road.
I never look for bicycles, and I freak myself out because that one time there is a bike lane, I'll just start turning over it and I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot to check if there's a cyclist. That would be bad.
They're going to look to see if a bicycle is coming before they make that turn.
Yeah, they're always going to be anticipating a bicycle there. The United States, although they are building some bicycle infrastructure, they have a long way to go. There are often bike lanes like sharrows, basically, that are painted on the road that
What's a sharrow?
Sectioning bicycles and vehicles. However, from my experience while riding and driving, people just use them as like suggested turning lanes, which is not what they're there for. But
here's some huge houses we're going by. I can't help but notice. Some big old American houses. This dull line is the bike lane. I mean, you can barely even tell that's a... You might think that's just a shoulder. Yep, they're just driving into the bike lane.
Imagine yourself in a new Toyota.
There it was, the ad for the big old truck.
Long way to go, I would say.
Okay, so probably one of the other things that we've really noticed as Americans driving in Germany is this situation right here. We're pulling up to a four-way stop, and in Germany, rather than having a stop sign, it is rechts vor links.
There it is. Here it is. Let's see if I can understand it this time.
So the person on the right has right of way. Now...
Okay. But what if you're across from each other? And okay. What if 3 people or 4 people get there at the same time?
Of course, in Germany as well, they have a lot of roundabouts. Every once in a while, you will see a stop sign. But this etiquette of approaching an intersection and always giving right of way to the person on the right was actually something that was quite new for us.
So, United States has 4-way stops or 3-way.
I'd probably blow straight through it.
Stops with stop signs, and the way these work,
I would be an absolute menace out there on the German roads.
Is you race.
People would think I was like terrorizing the town. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing any of it on purpose, guys. I'm sorry to all the cyclists. I splattered on my way here, but it was not on purpose.
To the stop sign, the first person there gets to go first. That's basically it.
Yeah, I'd like to say that driver's education taught us that there is an etiquette.
Although, you know, it kind of is interesting if multiple people get to the stop sign at the same time, the person on the right goes first. There it is. It's almost like we have our own little, what's it called? Rectivar link.
To this, but in reality, it's usually either whoever is there first gets to go first, or what happens more frequently, the person with the bigger car forces their way into first place.
Yeah, and these intersections will almost always have stop signs. Like, that's an important thing to point out too.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's no stop sign, you don't gotta stop. But also, you don't have to really wait for whoever gets there first unless you're crossing each other's line of traffic. I don't know if that's a thing in Germany. I'm trying to think of how that would play out with the rule about turning right. Like, if you're not crossing traffic, you don't really have to worry about, oh, you go first, I'll go, you know, I'll wait. You just both go.
Okay, so one of the other differences as an American who now drives in Germany, I was actually really surprised to learn that the driving age in Germany is 18. I don't know, I guess I just have kind of found that...
That is extremely odd to me, too. It just seems like, wow, you got a lot going on when you turn 18, huh? You got to start thinking about going to university, and then you're learning to drive at the same time. Like, it's a lot on your plate, and you're moving out. You're moving out, learning to drive, going to university. Holy crap. I'm kind of glad that I got to, learn how to drive before I had to move out. Maybe that's why they do it here in America. In a way that almost makes sense. You gotta admit, like, drive for a couple years before you go to college and live on your own and have to drive yourself everywhere. Of course, having 16-year-olds driving around is not without its consequences.
The whole getting your driver's license and your first car, it's such a rite of passage in the United States, but it doesn't really seem to hold the same value here in Germany.
So in the United States, driving ages are quite young, actually. I was 14 years old and I had a driving permit, meaning I could drive around with my mom, but 14 years old. And when I turned 16, I was allowed to get a driver's license and drive around by myself.
A lot of kids here, even younger than 14, know how to drive. Like especially when you live out in the country. I mean, first of all, you're gonna drive like four-wheelers and like off-roading vehicles for fun, for recreation, before you're 14 years old. So you'll know how to operate, And out here in the country, a lot more people know how to drive manual than city boys.
Get up, boys!
Like me. I don't know how to drive manual.
I'm gonna R-U-N-N-O-F-T!
Yeah, it's actually kind of scary. I feel like when I was 16 and I got my driver's license, I felt so old. But now that I'm an adult and I see these just children that look like babies behind the wheel,
I feel like I need to clarify. The reason they know how to drive manual is because those recreational off-road cars are often manual. That's why.
It's quite alarming as a parent.
Yeah, looking back on it now, like I can't believe 14 years old is legal. I sound like such a parent right now.
Okay, so last but not least, I think we should actually talk about the differences in getting a driver's license and the requirements that go along with it here in Germany.
I know it costs way more money in Germany.
As you probably could imagine if you're an American.
And I actually have passed the German driving license test with flying colors. If you go search my channel, guys. Total facts.
American watching this video, it's a lot more difficult to get your driver's license in Germany.
It requires a significant amount of hours.
You actually need to know how to drive.
Driving around with an instructor.
It's crazy.
You have a written test. You even need to learn CPR. You need to learn first aid.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, you actually take driving lessons with a certified driving instructor from a third-party company in Germany. You'll see them driving all around town in their like well-marked vehicles, but they're actually like a separate company and separate entity altogether. So I really think it's actually quite ironic because my experience of getting a driver's license in the United States was totally different from Jonathan's. And I, in a weird way, think that really sums up what it's actually like to drive in the United States. For me, I was required to take a driving test that was part of our school curriculum. I had to log an entire semester of driving hours with like a driving professional. I then had to sit for an exam that I had to pass before I could even go to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get my driver's license.
What's kind of funny is I'm familiar, I'm guessing I know what his story is going to be. He's not going to have to do half of that stuff. And I grew up, I moved states right in the middle of the process of learning to drive. So I did both these things. Here in Indiana, all of a sudden I had to take like a class in school and stuff.
Yeah,
You actually kind of had to learn to drive.
All I had to do was because I had the permit when I was 14 years old. I had a certain number of hours I had to do with my mom in the car, and then I got to go to the DMV. I had to take a vision test, and I had a written test that was very easy that I could take over.
Yeah, the written test is really easy.
Over again the same day if I failed it, and I had to drive around the block with an instructor in the car.
That's crazy. You could just take it over and over. You can almost just mark down random answers. Oh, okay, B was wrong last time. I'll go with A.
Really easy.
In all honesty, I actually think this is a pretty decent example, I think, of why maybe American drivers just quite frankly aren't as good of drivers as German drivers, because there really isn't a standard across the country on education requirements.
You don't have to know how to drive.
That's why you see license plates from other states. You'll be like, watch out for that guy. You know, that guy's from Mississippi. Watch out.
To have a driver's license. That's the scariest thing.
All right, that was really good. That was a really great video. Go check out their channel, link down below. Thank you so much for watching. What a fantastic subject. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.